Welcome back everyone to the online conference Food Innopolis International Symposium 2020. And now we are in the session of the Sustainable Foods Value Chain. Before we start the panel discussion, if there is any question, please send it to Q&A box. The speaker will be pleased to answer all your questions at the end of the session under the innovative post-harvest.
And please join me in welcoming all panelists. Ms. Helle van Friis, Innovation Manager of Food and Biocluster Denmark. Dr. Jeroen Wouters, Director, International Food Wallet, Wageningen, the Netherlands. And Dr. Pongsuda Pongtanya, Product and Technology Development Center at CG Packaging Public Company Limited, Thailand. Mr. Supanat Ratanadib, Tetra Pak, Thailand Limited, and moderated by Dr. Magnus Bergkvist, Head of Science and Research, Global Innovation Thai Union Group Public Company Limited, Thailand. Please welcome.
Welcome everybody to this session on the innovative post-harvest arranged by Food Innopolis and TMA. My name is Magnus. I'm very happy to host this session, and I'm joined by a very international and distinguished panel of speakers. Mrs. Supanat from Tetra Pak, Ms. Helle from Food Biocluster in Denmark, Dr. Jeroen Wouters from Food Valley in the Netherlands, and Dr. Pongsuda Pongtanya from SCG Packaging. Of course, most welcome to you, our dear audience. For a smooth session, we will begin with the presentations from all the different speakers. But remember, during this presentation, you can all submit questions to our online forum. So I encourage you to do that, and we'll discuss them at the end. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, which is Mr. Supanat Ratanadib, who will talk about the future of food packaging. Mr. Supanat.
Thank you very much, Magnus. All right, thank you very much. And first of all, thank you very much for having me in this forum as well. Before we go directly into the trends of the packaging, I think it is important that we understand what the consumer trend is, because essentially, when we develop a packaging, it's actually derived from what consumer wants, right? Because consumer is the heart of everything, really. That's how we work into the pack as well, because we, of course, have to foresee what is coming in the future in terms of our development, but that has to come from reliable information, which is consumer trends. And for this reason, Tetra Pak itself, as a company, we conduct an annual consumer research in terms of trend. We call it a Trendypedia, because we need to understand how consumers are going to behave going forward in order for us to actually design a packaging that serve the consumer needs. Okay, so before I tell you what are the what are the packagings for the future, I would like to briefly share to you what are the consumer trends in 2020 that we have conducted the research at the beginning of the years. Next slide, please. So, in terms of Trendypedia, Tetra Pak actually found there are a total of 7 trends altogether among consumers. And some of you may ask, because this research actually conducted at the very beginning of the year, and then COVID-19 took place. Some of you may ask if this COVID-19 will alter the trend of consumers, and the answer is no. And on the other hand, in the opposite, actually, COVID-19 becomes an accelerator of this trend to happen much faster. And I will take you through quickly on each of them, so you understand what it is, and then I will tell you about the trend of the packaging. So first of all, the first one is the responsible consumption. In the past, right, consumers see 2 things. One is health, one is sustainability as a different thing. But going forward, the consumers will see these 2 things merge and see it as the same thing, meaning if they are going to consume a product, they will consider not only what the product that they're consuming, but whether or not the product is also sustainable in terms of environment. Okay, so this has become a big trend for consumers, and I think it's all, you can see it all over the world now. Consumers who is concerned on their health, yet also sustainability. The second one is convenient reborn. I think convenient has been something that happening in the market for quite some time. Consumers' business lifestyles always seek something very quick, very easy to get for them. But for this trend, convenient reborn is something that is newer, meaning again, consumer doesn't look for something that is quick, that is easy, but convenient has to come with a sustainability angle as well. I mean, you can see that from the lockdown, for example, of Thailand. We ordered a lot of delivery food, right? With this, I mean, those restaurants, for example, that can offer, for example, a sustainable packaging on their food delivery will be something that consumers will look for it as well. This is just one example. So this kind of new convenient, it is something that consumers will look for it. Okay, not just something easy, but has to be sustainable as well. The third one is the heritage and provenance. And again, I think this one is quite clear. People or consumers are looking for something that is very local, something nostalgic as well. Or even again, with the COVID-19, you can see that a lot of consumers in Thailand, for example, try to shop locally much more, because one reason could be that export products is very difficult to bring it into the country because of the lockdown and countries closing. And that also make consumers become more desire or want to consume something much more local than in the past. Reconnect, again, because of the busy lifestyle that we see, consumers sometimes just want to switch off completely or reconnect with their loved one physically, okay, not just a remote video conference, something like this, but they want to meet, they want to mingle, okay, and the mean to do that is also food again, okay, like family gets together to have food together physically, yeah. So this is something where consumer wants more and more to reconnect with each other physically or to be with themselves more. The fifth one is intentional indulgence. Again, because sometimes with the busy lifestyle, consumers want something very indulgent to treat themselves. But indulgence in this sense or going forward is not the same as in the past anymore. So consumers want something that is indulged yet healthy, yet sustainable. For example, if they want to eat chocolate, they might want to have an organic chocolate or a dark chocolate, which they believe it is good for their health. This is one example. Or ice cream could be a fat-free ice cream. This is another example. So consumers will always want to indulge themselves from time to time, but indulgence has a different meaning now. Okay, it has to be good for their own health as well. The sixth one is personal data, and again, I believe this is something that has been discussing a lot lately. Consumers or people willing to share more of their own data in return that they will get something more customized for themselves. And it is where brand owners or big corporates have to understand that one solution doesn't fit all anymore going forward. Yeah? You have to be able to customize, tailor-made the solution for each individual consumers. But again, this is where we have to also be careful, because consumers also sometimes afraid of sharing because of the safety reason. But there's a balance to it. The last one is the experience mature. In this particular trend, when consumers consume one product, they seek something more than just the taste now. For example, if you go into a restaurant, they might want to feel something as soon as they walk into the restaurant. Yeah? How they are being treated, the atmosphere of the environment inside the restaurant, how they're being served, and then the food, and then the afterward, in case of you going to the restaurant. But for example, if you purchase a product and you would like to consume, what does the packaging communicate to you? Does it engage enough? What other gimmick can the brand owners provide before they consume and even after they consume as well? Those experience is something that consumers is longing for. Okay, they don't just like open the package and consume and throw it away. No, they want something more than that. They want the experience along the touch point of the brand. Okay, so these are the new consumer trends that we found in brief. Going forward, and where we base our trend of the packaging with these 7 trends. And next slide, please. And for this reason, after analyzing all the 7 trends that I've just mentioned, there are 2 key main trends of the packaging towards the future. One is sustainability. Second one is technology. Like I mentioned briefly, I mean, packaging going forward is just not something that is wrapped and protect the food anymore. It has to be able to tell, for example, tell consumers where is the origin of the product. It has to be able to be more engaged to consumers, like QR code. Consumer can scan, can play game, can engage in consumer promotions. So it has to be something beyond than just wrap and protect. On the other part is the sustainability, and this is where it is very, very important, because there's a research that the Tetra again has done separately. We found that consumers expect a big brand, big corporate to take responsibilities on environment. And for them to do that, I think the first touch point that they can do with consumers, something that is tangible, is through the packaging, because we have to understand that packaging is probably the first touch point between consumers and the brand owner. And that's why packaging has become an important role to demonstrate how big corporate take responsibilities on environment. You can see, I'm not going to give example, but you can see many big brands started to talk about how they apply their packaging through some of them recycled product, renewable materials, for example. So you will, going forward, you will see more and more of a big corporate talk about this. Yeah. And I have a few examples to share to you if we could just turn to the next slide. So this is actually a water in the US. It's actually created by Will Smith's son, Jaden Smith, and he decided to launch a drinking water in a carton packaging because he sees the concern on the environment. That's why he decided to launch something very unique, very prominent, I may say, which is water served in carton, which is unlike other brands. Yeah? And this brand has been a big viral for the past few years. It was first launched in the US. I think it's already expanded the market into the Europe and recently Australia, and it is coming into this part of the world, Asia too. So it has become a big trend for this just water brand. Yeah? Another example, if you could just turn to the next slide. This one is an edible chopstick, which is very interesting. So in China, the company who initiated this is actually a delivery company. And the way they see it is that because in China, they use chopsticks as the main utensils to consume food. And there are like so much disposable chopsticks every day. Yeah, and therefore they try to invent something that is actually edible. So in the end, they came up with this wheat-based chopstick, where consumer can literally eat the chopstick after they finish using the product. Yeah, and the packaging that wrap the chopsticks also come from a recycled paper as well. So this solution is really environmentally friendly solution. And these are just the two examples that I would like to give it to you. There are so many more if you see in the market. So in a nutshell, the trend of the packaging is the sustainabilities and the technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kun Supanat. That was very informative, very inspiring. So given that Tetra Pak is a Scandinavian company, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Helle from the Food Bio Cluster in Denmark to give us a little wider perspective of challenges in food waste and packaging from the Scandinavian perspective. So please, Helle.
Thank you so much, Magnus, and thank you so much to the organizers of this event. It is a great pleasure to be here. I think my presentation should be for you to see very soon as well. But as a brief introduction, Made in Denmark is a brand itself for food products because it reflects quality, safety, innovation. And I'm here today to share with you some of the insights from the Danish food industry and some of the research we're doing. I am the Innovation Manager of Food and Biocluster Denmark. And we are a membership organization connecting the industry in Denmark and abroad, who's looking for innovation within the Danish food industry. And you can please go to the next slide. Denmark is a small country. Denmark has a population of 5.7 million inhabitants, but our food production can feed more than 15 million people. The Danish ingredients industry, for instance, is a major international player with about 15% of the global market produced from a population with less than 0.07% of the world population. And on the next slide, I'm going to tell you how we can do this. The major key is collaboration. And it's not a new thing. Already back when the Dairy Corporation, as you might know today as Arla Foods, they started working with collaboration. Collaboration is deeply rooted in the Danish business culture, especially when it comes to the food industry. And the cooperative movement has formed the backbone of the Danish food cluster's work. It plays a role in many of the innovative solutions you see from the Danish industry, and it has also provided solutions to some of the world's most complex problems. In Denmark, finding new solutions and relevant knowledge to apply to the world's biggest challenges can only happen because we are various people in the entire value chain that work together. And the ability to be innovative and collaborate across companies, consumers, scientists, public institutions, and even market competitors has defined the shape of today's industry and the products that led it here. Without it, for instance, salmonella would not have been detected from Danish poultry. If you go to the next slide, I will tell you a bit about our organization. I have 40 lovely colleagues, and the map you see here is Denmark, as said, a small country in Scandinavia in the northern of Europe. And we facilitate and manage projects for more than 100 million euros per year. And we host more than 100 events and activities for our membership companies. On the next slide, you can see the various offers we have for the members of our organization. The most important thing we do is that we are the one point of access to the industry in Denmark. We offer one-on-one sparring on specific challenges our companies have, and we ensure that we are the matchmaking key when it comes to finding the right partner or researcher, a startup or corporate retailer. Whatever the company needs, we are there to be the gatekeeper for them. More than this, we facilitate a lot of networking group, inspiration, events, digital masterclasses, and a lot of different activities. On the next slide, you can see an outlook of some of our members. I believe you already know some of them, I would guess. We have more than 300 companies that are part of Food and Biocluster Denmark. I believe companies as Danish Crown, Arla, maybe AAK, are familiar companies for you. The important thing here is that we are not only for the food producing companies and the large corporates, we are also for the related businesses such as the packaging industry, the ingredients, the technology side when it comes to the food and bioresource industry in Denmark. And of course, we also have all the universities and everything from startups to large companies. Large corporates are a part of our organization. Yes. And one of the things I'm here to share with you today are some of the trends we see in Denmark. So if you go to the next slide, I would just first like to state that trends are developing constantly. And I'm very pleased that our dear colleague from Tetra, who's also a member of Food and Biocluster Denmark, shared some of the trends and key insights they are seeing right now. Because the picture I shared with you here, that is poached fish. I don't know how many of you who remember this, but I do. And it was on the TV when you were waiting for the next program to begin. And today you can flick on everything you want on your iPad, on your laptop. You can stream constantly from Netflix or whatever TV you wish to see. But today, on the next picture, you can see that you can have chef-made Michelin food created by a robot. So I'm just saying tremendous things are happening. And now you can talk with your doctor on an app. Maybe more of people have realized that now due to the global pandemic. But before that, you always had to go physically to your doctor. This app, Kry, is a Swedish initiative where you just on your iPhone can talk to your doctor. And when you zoom into the food and bio industry, on the next slide, I have taken some example from distribution and production. In Denmark, as I believe we also see in most of Europe, we see more and more when it comes to vertical farming. Finding new ways to produce your foods in new innovative ways where you use the square meter the best possible way. And if you continue to flick on some more pictures to this slide, we have also experienced now that the way we distribute our food, consumers are just shopping online, they are ordering takeaway, it's getting delivered to your door. I think this is one of the things that the global pandemic has helped us with, is finding new channels for our food production and our distribution system in this sector. And the example shared up in the right corner is Refarm. That is one of our companies creating farms on the roof or the basement of restaurants. So they always have freshly grown vegetables and herbs. And the example in the middle, Circular Food Technology, that is a Danish startup. They were working with brewer spent grain. It is a very specific example when we look into this food waste agenda, which of course all of these items can play a role in solving. But what they are doing is they are getting the brewer spent grain from Carlsberg, the largest brewery here in Denmark, and they upcycle that, they dry it, and then they turn it into flour or crackers, oils, etc. So they take this waste product and upcycle it into a new food product. And another major thing here in Denmark, a major trend, is sustainable packaging. And I'm very pleased to share more information with you on this trend. The major dilemma here is that packaging, it can prevent food loss, but packaging is also a source of a waste. And this is the challenge we need to overcome. And I have also taken some different examples I'm happy to share with you right now. First of all, a lot of companies are looking at different materials. What should they choose when it comes to finding sustainable packaging? Because there are many options. You can have cardboard, plastics, glass, etc. You know the opportunities. But it's also very related to the consumer and what they expect and what they want. On the next picture, that is one of our startups in our organization, Cellogy. They are creating a plastic material out of fruit waste. So it's a cellulose-based plastic material they're creating out of a waste product. Another example I'm sharing with you is Arla Foods. You probably know this already, and they have done a lot of things. One, they have changed their milk cartons from fossil-based to a bio-based plastic material, which make it have a more brownish color, and that can have a more sustainable appealing to a lot of companies. What they've more done is first they put the screw lid on, but now they are removing the plastic screw cap, and that means that they can reduce 30% of the organic milk carton CO2 footprint. And that is 10 grams for each carton. And because, maybe it doesn't sound like that much, but they sell 74 million 1-liter milk cartons each year in Denmark. So the CO2 that adds up. And they have also changed all their crates from green crates to these black crates you see in the middle being held by a man. which can also reduce their carbon footprint with 30% on this specific topic. In the top right corner, you see some coffee bags. That is from BKI, Brazil Coffee Import. What they have done is that they have changed their packaging to a new material, which now is 99% recyclable. And the foil, the new foil, reduces the climate impact, looking at CO2 emission, by 23% compared to the old coffee bags. And on the left side, you see the Carlsberg new packaging. That is the beer company here in Denmark, the Snap Pack it's called, where instead of that the 6-pack is wrapped in one foil, now it's stick together, so you need to break them apart. And by doing that, then they have reduced the percentage of plastic with 76% compared to the previous packaging. And down in the right corner, you see the new packaging from Danish Crown for ground beef and ground pork as well, for the food service industry in Denmark. This meat is also packed without oxygen, which ensures that the shelf life from the production is extended with 7 days. So there is a lot of things happening in this area of packaging, especially here in Denmark, and I believe it also do so in the other countries. You could ask yourself, why even bother about this packaging? And if you go to the next slide, I have some reasons why you need to bother. The first point is EU regulations. Of course, that is mainly us in the European countries, but EU regulation states that 50% of all plastic packaging must be reduced in 2025 with more than 50%. And in these first two pictures here, sorry, I will share them with you. That, of course, is the horrible pictures we see from places we wish we don't go. But, of course, pictures like that make people move and change, but it also makes companies change. So we have some EU regulations we have to follow. We have some horrible pictures out in the world, which makes us want to do things. And then we, of course, have the consumers. And the consumers, they are willing to pay more for sustainable food packaging. And research shows that actually 60% of the consumers all over the world state that they are willing to pay more for sustainable food packaging. So let's have a look at that. If you go to the next slide, you will be able to see and click on the figure, you will be able to see the research I just referred to, where you can see that research done in Denmark, Ireland, Spain, Italy, China, and America. You can see consumers' willingness to pay more for food products with a sustainable packaging. And the total is that in average 60% is actually willing to do that. And it's no longer a choice for the food company whether they want to look at sustainable packaging. If you look on this slide, you will be able to see that 61% of consumers say that they're likely to switch to a brand that's more environmentally friendly than their current brand. So this leaves companies, also food-producing companies, with no other choice than looking into this area. And therefore, it is so great. We have great innovative companies like Tetra Pak and other packaging-producing companies who are there to help you find the right solution so you can meet the demand of the consumer. Though there is still a gap. There is a gap between the intentions and the behavior. And why do I say that? Because maybe you know what is sustainable packaging and you intend to do it, but then at the end of the day, maybe you don't. That is not the behavior you see down in the mall. And on the next slide, I have a recent research looking at this. It's a behavior experiment where you are looking at different fruits and vegetables, and you're testing it on organic consumers. So you can see you have the fruits and vegetables just laying there by itself, and then wrapped in a plastic or a packaging. And if you go to the next slide, you can see what the consumers preferred. When you look at all the food products, you can see the first two pillars, that is the packed product, and the next two is the unpacked product compared to the different categories. And the black pole, that is the organic buyers, and the orange pole is the non-organic buyers. So what you can see for majority of the products is that the organic buyers, who you might think would be more looking into these sustainable alternatives, and what I at least expected would have chosen the unpacked products, they actually prefer the packed products. So this just confirms the behavioral gap. So what I'm very curious on is, how do we close this gap between the intentions and the behavior when related to this sustainable packaging? And this is also something I would like to discuss with the rest of the panel and you out there who are watching, because I believe there's a lot of things we can do to close this gap. It could be about increasing awareness of sustainability, communication, labeling, technologies, nudging, social norms, and framing. I think there's a lot of things that needs to be done before we overcome this gap completely. And at the end of the day, we have the consumers who we wish to have in this area, so that we ensure the most sustainable future. And on the last slide, I have just summed up the solution, or what the solution can be. And I believe you will only succeed in this area if you have a holistic view at packaging. It is not just only one thing, choosing the material or how you use it or recollect it or how it's sorted in the public sector or what material is actually recycled. You need to have the full perspective, and you need to know that not one solution fits all, and not one packaging is the most sustainable for all food products. There's a lot of factors you need to consider in, and therefore it's quite lucky we have a lot of good research. We have a lot of companies who's already doing a lot in this area, food producing companies and also packaging companies. And those were the words I wanted to share with you here from Food and Biocluster Denmark, and from the Scandinavian sector looking into this area of sustainability and sustainable packaging and food waste. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Helle, for that overview. That was very exciting and interesting. We had some questions for you, but we can save them until the end and maybe continue our discussion as well. I have a couple of discussion points after seeing Tetra Paks that I see some interesting trends. Before we get to that, I'd also like to hear from Dr. Jeroen Wouters, what's going on in Food Valley. Related to circular agriculture, food utilization, and sustainability. So please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone in Thailand, and a great pleasure to be participating in the Food Innopolis International Symposium this time. I recall I was over in 2018 participating in the live event, but nevertheless good to participate in this way and now in a digital format. And congratulations on the organizers to bringing this together. Well, what I would like to do with you is to share some of the activities in this field from the perspective of Food Valley, the Netherlands, and also, together see what are things that are developing and how we can go about that, jointly shaping the future of food. And in the next slide, you will see a brief introduction. So my name is Jeroen Wouters. I'm Director International at Food Valley. an international cluster organization fully focused on stimulating innovation in food. And I have a background in food technology. I've always been working in this and in food innovation management, and have a particular interest also in personalized nutrition and exactly balancing the right nutritional needs towards food consumption. And as a matter of fact, that's of course addressing the topic of health a lot, but a lot of circularity and sustainability is also covered in that topic as well. And in the next slide, you will see that the Sustainable Development Goals that were set by the UN basically have an association also to food and food production and inclusiveness of all people involved in that. And that is for a Food Valley organization, basically the major goal to address those challenges and help the world to further think along those lines, whether it's governed by policies or rather by policies from companies, for example. And we would like to bring and stimulate the innovation in this field from a worldwide perspective. And a little bit about the Food Valley organization. We are also continuously developing, and you will see in the next slide. It is a central position is taken for the companies. And I think in the food production, the companies, of course, play a very important role in the whole pathway of producing food. And we have a very active network that is involved in that innovation. And you see, of course, big names in that involved, like Friis Campina, DSM, Unilever, Heinz, Kraft Company. So a lot of the international players. But the fun thing also is that there's a lot of new companies upcoming and a lot of startups and entrepreneurship involved in our activities. And that is bringing a great dynamics in that we see those young developments. But nevertheless, next to those companies, you see also a key role in knowledge suppliers. And that has traditionally also been one of our key activities to bridge the gap between knowledge and use of that knowledge by companies. But you see that nowadays also much more players take a role in that, like investors or governments and consumer organizations, for example. So that playing field is getting much more dynamic and greater, and we love to interact in that. And in the next slide, you see a bit more on the approach. We tackle that, and that's maybe a bit classic, but it helps in especially the technical innovations, coming from an idea, making you bring all the steps towards the actual development of that innovation. And you see in this panel that there's a lot of activities that we undertake as Food Valley in guiding this innovation pathways. And we like to stimulate and discuss and bring out the ideas on that. We think about feasibility, and we have shared facilities to facilitate the technical developments, but also communicate and bring forward those new innovations. And in the bottom line, you see a lot of attention to entrepreneurship to help and assist, especially the younger companies to further develop in that respect. But in the next slide, you see also that the organization like Food Valley is developing. And we see that, of course, a lot of power in innovation is being brought by technical innovations, by brilliant ideas coming from industry or research organizations, etc., or from academia, and that will help. But it is also a key item to sort of funnel those activities towards the larger ambitions, for example, towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And as I said in the beginning, a bit in personalized nutrition and more specifically in sports and nutrition, and looking at the actual nutritional needs for athletes, etc. But you see also that the team is crucial in that, and you see that a lot of players is involved in that, and that's also reflected in that little slide, that there's a lot of interaction between those players required. And so analogy towards sports is highly addressed in this field. Well, in the next slide, you see the Food Valley ambitions towards 2030. So we are also in a phase of defining our new activities and what will be crucial to that. And then, of course, we see the larger ambitions, why we do this, a healthy and a sustainable world, and that we have the ideas to bring together parties to develop on that. And we have a lot of activities in that involved, and you see that in the center scheme. But the major topic, which I would like to discuss and briefly mention upon today, are the main fields of innovation to focus on. And that very much relates also to the earlier speakers. Hey, where are things happening? And in the next slide, that is highlighted as a bit more of a cartoon way, but to easier make all the information from the previous slide, honestly. There's a lot of things going on in protein and protein shift in a balance between animal-based protein products, but also plant-based protein products. And that has a lot to do with the circular developments also. And also to further think along the lines, hey, how can this be delivered? What type of crops should be used then if you would like to use plant-based options? And how to develop that and also increase the functionality and the production of that. Now, and that is something I will come back on a bit more in detail, but always in the balance between, plant-based and combined with animal-based topic. Then circular agriculture and food is a topic that is, of course, highly addressed these days. A lot of activities towards primary production and to produce at the efficient way, and a lot of like vertical farming or very detailed farming, precision agriculture, a lot of topics in that field. But basically, it goes throughout the whole chain, and I will bring an example on that on board as well. And then, of course, the topic of food and health, also addressed earlier this morning from the consumer perspective. A lot of people looking for health. And I think also during the COVID situation, that shifted quite a bit. We see a lot of trends of more home cooking, for example, but also, the further interest and need for, say, food that could maybe assist in general well-being and health, but also in immunity focus, for example. So there's a lot of, new attention to that and to further increase that. And then basically a topic that is addressing all the aspects above is smart and digital technology. Personalized trends, people that are looking in more data for their personal benefit, but also to understand production chains. And also, on the other hand, that we obtain much more data on how our food is being produced. And that helps also to assess, well, for example, logistics streams, but also the way to assess circularity in that respect. Now, and then the next slide, you will see a format where we see quite a bit of items towards circular agriculture. And that is quite a dynamic picture. Of course, it's a circular proposition, but we see, for example, in this topic, a big item is waste streams. And that is something that has to do also with this topic of post-harvest use, is that we are very keen now on utilizing the total product. Of course, we see on one hand that, let's say, the traditional food products and the full food composition is crucial. But in the ingredient use, you see, of course, also that you might generate waste streams and that you could reuse those and think on those type of topics. Now, and well, another item is the local sourcing, also addressed earlier, especially maybe also, again, in this COVID situation. How are we going to deal with complicated pathways, or can we also obtain foods from more local assessments and local circular ambitions? And that is a very intriguing item too. And I will come to that a little bit later also, that is basically the topic of waste prevention. You think ahead of what you might be producing and from that define the process. Now, from Food Valley, we said it's nice to highlight all those innovations. And in the next slide, you see a brief picture of the worldfoodinnovations.com website. Basically a platform at which companies or researchers or others can define an innovation topic and can also bring that forward. And this is a source of inspiration for a lot of people to look at and see where new developments are heading, but also the technical items behind it, and it really relates to the interaction that we have. In the next slide, I bring out some examples on the topic we discussed. And for the post-harvest technology, you see that there's, of course, a big item is the balance between food safety and optimal use of food products. And I think that is still a crucial item. We would like to deliver a lot of foods all over the world, but in a safe way and a perishable way. And then items like processing make the crucial step. And we see a lot of developments in that area, and those sometimes tend to be a bit more traditional than you would hope, I would say. We see a lot of fancy processing equipment, for example, from a company like called Top, with mild processing options, smaller portions, and bringing fresh products right away to the market. Another interesting technology still is FIIS technology, which is very specifically targeting certain pathogens in certain food products. And this startup called Mikrios, which is basically a scale-up right now, honestly, is developing that technology and can deliver aspects which really targetedly relate to food safety. NutriPulse e-cooker is another example. I like that too personally because it's the pulsed electric field technology, but then utilized in a household setting. So not so much in the processing thing. And it's a very peculiar way of preparing foods, which is very short times and let's say a less higher burden on the produced food. So also it's a nutritional point of view, you could foresee that it is delivering a quality food product, but easily and palatable to eat. So, for example, preparing a chicken breast or vegetables within 30 seconds and nice and tender, so to say. And then also on the topic of data, you see a lot of data and processing optimization. And the company involved in that is NISO, that is fully involved in getting those models also, predictive models in food processing. And that is, definitely a great tool to further optimize those, for example, waste streams, but also the production efficiency in general. And what is a very specific talk, also a key item for my personal interest here is fermentation technology. And we see a lot of development there, of course, with alternative ways of protein production also. And that is something that is really delivering, a high potential in future. Now, and to wrap up in the next slide, I come back to the topic of, let's say, the efficiency in food production, but also waste. And we see, of course, that there's a lot of novel protein sources being developed and looked at. So that is, delivering a great world of food innovation products like quinoa products that are grown all over the world with new developed varieties, for example, now also cultivated in Western Europe. But for example, the algae production, in which high efficiency can be used, and you can tweak those algae and select the ones you would like to use, developing certain micronutrients or proteins or fatty acids, for example. And we see different topics in that. Insect production is, of course, a key item in it, and also the development of relevant ingredients from that. And what was fun, the 2 years ago that I was also at the symposium, also my colleague from the Wageningen University, Van Timmermans, was there explaining a bit more about food waste and waste prevention. And the key item now is basically to think ahead. And what are we being producing, and what is then going on with those type of products in the total chain, and to see whether we can optimize that. And there was a lot of EU involved research investigations on that. Now, and then you see, of course, that also at the consumer level, also a lot of attention is being paid to reuse or efficient use of materials. For example, we have very nice initiatives like cucumbers that are not in the right space or shape and in the right form, that you can make very nice products with those, but they were maybe traditionally being discarded somewhere. And also in a restaurant setting, that there's efficiency to be obtained with waste materials there or close to being waste materials, and that their interaction via digital platform allows the contact between producers and consumers. So that is all development where you see items coming back, circular, of course, on top, but a lot of data is helping and assessing that. And on the other hand, you see a lot of health and nutrition aspects also related, but keeping in mind food safety, of course. Now, and with that, I would like to wrap up and give the word to the next speaker. Food Value Analysis there, get connected. And we know that, in the next slide, you will see that we're open to any participation. And it's also a pleasure to have our members from SEG around the table today, but we have also some quite very good ties with Thai-based companies in that respect. So a pleasure to be here and participating. In the next slide, you will see the final Get Connected notification. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Jeroen. That was interesting to hear what's going on over in Food Valley. As you mentioned, you have your collaborators at SCG with us here in the room. So to bring us a local perspective of packaging and sort of circular agriculture, I'd like to introduce Dr. Pongsuda from SCG Packaging.
Thank you very much, Dr. Magnus. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to share the situation of the post-harvest and also what we have done to develop the packaging for the post-harvest in ASEAN and in Thailand. First of all, I would like to introduce our company, which is SCG Packaging. We aim to be the total packaging solution. We aim to be the total packaging solution provider with the scale and market leadership across ASEAN. And we produce pulp, paper, film, plastic packaging to serve 6 consumer segments, ranging from primary packaging to the secondary and the tertiary. As you can see, if we look at the post-harvest losses, actually, there are many reasons causing post-harvest loss in fresh produce throughout the supply chain. Usually, we lost more than 30%. That is really happen in the real world. However, if we can manage it using the effective process, we can reduce it down to 20%. That is quite a challenging process, actually. Likewise, in Thailand and in ASEAN, more than 30% food loss happen, especially during the processes that in the frame, like in the post-harvest handling and storage process and packaging and also distribution retail. Nowadays, we also have so many challenges that we need to come across. For the first one is about lack of the knowledge and technology to the farmer. Actually, our government, even Thai government, try to do a lot to transfer this knowledge, know-how to our farmer, but still have many gaps to fulfill. The second one is the costly post-harvest infrastructure, and also we have quite small amount of R&D budget. The third one is about lack of the awareness, especially for people in the region, because we have so many and abundant food actually in our local countries, especially. And this also related to the low price of the food commodities in the local markets. And again, we also have the problem of high cost of packaging and transportation, especially in remote or in rural area. And the objective, as you can see in this slide, the objective of the development of the post-harvest technology is to reduce the ripening rate and also to reduce the mechanical injury to prevent the pathogen entry to our fresh produce, and also try to extend the shelf life to reach to the target market. You can see in the red block that there are so many processes dealing with the post-harvest. Last but not least, packing is one of the most important, and our company try to develop the packaging that really play the important role in 4 dimensions like protect, preserve, perform, and also promote the products in the shelf. Our focusing area of development is the tropical fresh produce. For extend the shelf life in the local and to the export markets, with the theme of keep fresh and tasty. The market value of the export fresh produce from ASEAN is about $3 million, especially from Thailand, Vietnam, and also from the Philippines. This slide shows the technology integration to total sustainable packaging solution for fresh produce that our company has been developed. As you can see in the top left-hand side, we developed modified atmosphere packaging with the full platforms. First of all, we developed the database of tropical fresh produce. We have construct the MAP simulation program that's for perforation of the film and the bag that's suitable for each particular type of the tropical fruits or vegetable. We developed the OptiBreath, which is the breathable bag, and also ethylene absorber, which is the trade name we call it OptiSorb. In addition, we also have kind of the box, which is we developed for lighter and stronger for the outer box, which we call it the green carton. This one we can reduce the heavy of the weight of the box quite effectively. And last but not least again, we also have green logistic, which is, we call it SCG Logistic, which is one of the company that's belong to SCG, which is our mother company. The key success factor of our development is the close collaboration with our strategic partners, which are universities, our strategic distributors, and also very important is our customers. So that's why we can really develop the solution from farm to table very effectively. And this is kind of the example that we have already do the co-creation with our customers. This slide shows the examples of 2 fruits that we export. Actually, not only in Thailand, but also very important fruits from the ASEAN countries. The left-hand side is the fresh polished coconuts, and the right-hand side is the Nam Dok Mai mangoes. I think many of you that visit Thailand probably have ever tried this kind of mango before. For the fresh polished coconuts, for the first generation, you can see that now usually we have to export the trim, which has so many fibers outside, which is like a natural preserved material. However, it's very heavy. So we have to polish them to make it just like the second generation, which is, we call it the polished coconuts. The polished coconuts is very easy to go off. And we have to extend the shelf life and export them to the country like in China, in so many countries in Asia, and we aim to export it to USA. So we work together with our customers that we can extend the shelf life from 1 to 2 weeks to about 8 weeks, which is about 2 months that we can extend the shelf life. And it gives the opportunity to export this kind of coconut, and it can be like longer distance that we can our customer can reach to the market. And as you can see from the right-hand side, which is the Nam Dok Mai mangoes, usually they have to send to export it via the cargoes, and the shelf life is just 1 to 2 weeks. However, we can, by using our packaging, we can extend the shelf life up to twice of the times. And we also have kind of the solution that you can pack in individual, you can pack in the full like all together, and also provide the boxes outside with control the humidity that we can go further to Korea, to China, and also we aim, right now we are working together with university that we aim to export our product to USA. Last but not least, this is like the future sustainable packaging solution theme that we are doing at the moment. We try to develop and design for the minimized material to maximize the usage. This is really aligned with the circular economy theme in terms of circular suppliers, product life extension, and also resource recovery. In addition, we also developed our packaging. As you know that in Thailand, the collecting process of the packaging is not that effective. So we also try to develop something that compostable or biodegradable as well. That is like, we try to look at something that waste-free packaging. So because we also have kind of fiber-based packaging and also plastic, which can be plastic. So we also develop those kind of things to correspond to sustainable packaging, especially in our region. So that's all from me. So I'm looking for the questions that we can discuss later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. I can't wait. Finally, we can get mangoes in the United States. I was missing that a lot.
You will. You will get it.
It's difficult to get. So we have one question for Helle regarding your food packaging. So maybe we can address that one first. You ready?
Yes, indeed.
It comes back to recycled packaging. Are there any particular laws related to recycled food packaging materials for Denmark or Europe in general?
There is now a law stating that plastic bottles and glass bottles should be recycled. And it is so that for these drinks containers, there has been a system running in Denmark for many years, which means that 90% of all drink containers is already recycled. It's called Danish Return System. And it is where you return it, and then you actually get money for returning the bottle. You get, 20 cents when you return a plastic bottle to the shop. And that is a system that is very effective. And I also believe that could be one of the solutions to having an effective recycling system all over the range of plastic materials and other food packaging materials we see.
Thank you for that. Can I follow up with a second question to that? Being Swedish, I'm well aware of the recycling policies, and they've been going on for quite a long time. But what about plastic recycling? So if you use plastic materials, recycle the plastics, and want to use them for food packaging, is there a barrier to that today in legislation?
No, you are allowed to do that, of course, as long as you fulfill the given food safety criteria. Then you, of course, can do that. I think the challenge regarding what you're addressing now is that the private consumer find it very hard to recycle plastic materials from your food products if there's not this mark on that you take it to the return system. Because then you have your waste bins that, of course, is separated in hard plastic and soft plastic and glass and metal. But even just in Denmark, which is a tiny country, there is various ideas and rules on how you should sort it, how you should handle your plastic material. So there are 98 municipalities in Denmark, and there are also 98 different guidelines on how to do it. So what we need on this matter is that it's going to have to be easier for the consumer how to sort their packaging material from their private home.
Thank you for that. So is this part of what you're meaning with closing the gap?
It could be one of the solutions as well, indeed, yeah. It is one of the challenges there is that the consumer don't really know what to do about this plastic. Because let's say at my private home, I need to do it, but what when I go to my holiday house 100 kilometers away, then maybe I need to do it after different rules. But it's all about getting awareness and knowledge about how you can use your plastic products, I believe. And then a lot on communication and labeling. We also heard from our beautiful packaging companies here that packaging is not just to wrap a food product, it's also to tell a story. And you can, on your packaging, also tell the story on how to recycle it and how to give it new life.
So if you're taking the challenges that you mentioned, Helle, the consumer awareness, regulation, and recycling from a materials perspective, if you're bringing this over to Asia, what do you see here that allows us to close the gap, both to Tetra Pak Asia and to SCG?
go to me first.
Please.
Okay. Actually, we work closely with the Thai government to look at the awareness and also the regulations. And for SCG packaging ourselves, as you know that we have packaging in fiber-based and also plastic-based. For the fiber-based, we can claim that we have like 100% recycled materials, especially from, we gather all the packaging, the paper from the market and also from any general uses that we return it to our factory and try to reuse it. And we also have kind of the research that try to maximize how to use those fiber so many times, many round, as many as possible. That is our aim. And the second one for the plastic, we also set up the goal for 2025 that 100% of our plastic material gonna come from, must be the recycled one that we have to, to use it. So that is the aim for our company that we work closely with our Thai government. But again, we need to put a lot of effort on the effective collecting with our partner and also our companies in our group. I think in Thailand, education is very important to build the awareness of Thai people. And I think in ASEAN as well.
Yeah, I think that's all over the world, honestly. I see also the same item with the biodegradable packaging. Very hard to discriminate which is basically the plastic one and the biodegradable because of the quality of the packaging, of course. But then how to convey that message to the consumer, how to utilize this. And I think that could be a key aspect to further develop.
Yes, and I fully agree as well. I think Dr. Pongsuda has also answered on behalf of myself. I think in Thailand and similarly for the rest of the world, education is one thing because I think it is important to educate to consumers on how can they contribute, back into the system, not only expecting the big corporates to do, but they're also part of the society. Because I think one word I like that Dr. Helle said is a collaboration, because when it comes to environmentally or sustainability, it's all about collaborations and not competition. So I think we all, as an industry leaders, have to work together on how to educate consumers. That is one thing. And the other thing also Dr. Pongsuda already mentioned is the infrastructure of collecting the used package back into the recycling system. Because similarly, Tetra Pak packaging is also 100% recyclable. But the challenge we see in the market, at least for Thailand, is how can we collecting the used package back into the system, and that we have to work with a lot of partners, whether it be government, private entities. So we have several projects going on to build the infrastructure to collect those waste package back into the system, the recycling system. Yes.
Thank you very much. Very good comments. I believe our time is up. And with that, I'd like to thank our panel members very much for your participation. It was very interesting to hear you. And with that, thank you. And back over to the studio.
Thank you very much for Ms. Friis and Dr. Wouters, Dr. Pongsuda, Mr. Supanat, and Dr. Bergkvist for an eye-opening discussion.
And there are still two more interesting sessions, the less possible shape and the sustainability pathway.